that normally have some of that?
That's not there.
Okay.
Why's it got a picture then?
Okay, now it is, yes. Absolutely.
So a little technical hitch as always. Getting started. Can anyone hear me or see me? I think it's live now. So now I've got pictures of me wandering around, going around the back. So forgive the first 2 or 3 minutes. Draw something.
It says hi.
Hi, draw something. Hi, Byron. Hi, Mr. Old Clunker. Hi, Byron. Hi, David. I'm going to find that a little disconcerting. I'm actually going to get rid of my preview player because that...
Hi, Wendy. Everybody's coming in. They can see you now, Steve.
They can see me, yeah. They can see me, but I'm actually going to hide my preview because it's very disconcerting seeing it going a few seconds afterwards. So Charisma, hi. Charisma, Charles, Wendy, draw something. Hello, everybody. Today I thought we might have a little bit of fun, make some, looking at that camera and it's this camera, make some banana bread.
Hi, everybody's coming in. Hi, Stacey. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Stacey. Hi, Chris.
And
how are you?
Tropic Lush, Daniel, Rosa.
I got these nice organic, see they're going a little bit dark on the side. Oh, excuse me. We've got a coffee machine that goes, automatically makes noise.
It's just going to sleep.
Going to sleep. So we've got these lovely, we call them red tip bananas. They're organic, they're quite nice. They're just starting to turn, so we thought I thought I'd make banana bread. Actually, I've got a really nice recipe for banana bread that we made a few weeks ago, and it was so delicious. It reminded me to make it with you guys. So if anyone is baking along, I don't suppose anyone is. I only put the post up yesterday. Tricky for me to see. I wonder if that could go up a little higher, Michelle. Is there any way that could sit up there? Hello, everybody. Does that make a lot of difference? See that bowl there? Just there?
Yeah.
I'm just going to raise you up a little bit so I'm not looking down at the counter. I know we should have prepped this all before, but it's all good.
We're doing it a different way today.
So just adjust the camera, Michelle, so it's adjusted for that. Now I can see who's in. So Chris, Daniel, Wendy, draw something. Zaya, how are you? Ruby, how are you, Ruby? I think you asked a question the last live show, Ruby. I'm going to answer some of those questions that went wrong, but we're going to get on and do a bit of cooking first. So I got these red tip bananas, and you'll see if I crack one of these open, they're beautiful. They're actually just starting to get sweet and ripe. So I'm going to make a really, really nice banana bread. The reason they put this wax tip on the end, by the way, is because it traps the chemical reaction to stop the bananas from ripening too quickly, which is a great thing. Let's just pop that in over there. So if anyone is joining along, when you start a banana bread, you want really nice ripe bananas. They've got to be sort of soft and mushy. Excuse me, squeezing these. I'm going to be eating the bread, so I'm not too bothered. I'm going to pop.
Wendy says, I love nana bread.
Nana bread is good. Bread. This is a really nice, I want that sort of dark caramelized flavour, Wendy. So I'm looking to get the dark sugars in here. I like a little bit of cinnamon in mine, so I put a bit of cinnamon. I've got 2 bananas, large bananas. This is about a cup of bananas in total. Let me just see if I've got get myself a fork. So if we go down camera, Michelle, we've got 2 cameras today. And what I'm going to do is just mash these bananas up. So let me have a little look. Good day, Byron. Gustona Smith, hello. Daniel. They're red tip bananas, Daniel. They're just an organic banana from up north in Australia. They're local banana, and it means that the quality is better. They're completely organically farmed. It doesn't matter if you've got regular bananas, if they're a little overripe, if you're going to be cooking along with me, any bananas, we want about a cup of soft bananas. So Michelle's going to pop between sort of face down and face up occasionally. I won't know where you are. Maybe you can just tell me, Michelle, so I know if I've got to look to the camera.
You mashed your bananas yet?
So can you see these bananas in here? Once you start sort of ripe bananas, once you start, and don't worry, even if your bananas are sort of almost black.
Stacey Knott says, Grandma said to use over-ripened bananas. Yours look right.
Yeah, they're over-ripened is really good. Camera up to me.
Yeah.
Over-ripened is really good. So even when the skins have gone really black, and even when the bananas are starting to turn, that's more sweetness. I'm using these bananas because I find with these bananas, even when they're close to overripe, even when they're still yellow, they've got a lovely sweetness to them. So just use really good bananas. So back down here in the bowl, as you start to mash your bananas, they go almost glutinous, sort of like a wallpaper paste. So, and the smell coming off them is delicious. See that one there? He doesn't want me to crush him.
Oh, thank you, Aussie Zach. He's just given us $10.
Oh, buddy.
He says, hello, Michelle and Stephen. I'm finally here. I have the week off work so I could make it in today.
Hey, Aussie Zach. How are you, mate? You got the whole week off work. Beautiful.
Australia Day.
Australia Day this week. Tomorrow's Australia Day. What are you doing, Aussie? You're doing Aussie. What are you doing, Zach? Anything for Australia Day? It's a big holiday here in Australia. Camera up to the top for a moment, Michelle.
Yep.
Aussie Zach, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. Are you doing anything special for Australia Day? We're hoping to have a family round and do something, so it should be a bit of fun.
So Daniel Moller says, does banana bread taste good?
This banana bread always tastes good, doesn't it?
He says that looks very mushy.
So I've mushed and mushed and mushed my banana bread. You don't have to be too particular about it. Now we need something to bind the whole banana bread together. So just come back down here. We are going to add a couple of eggs. Your heads down?
Yes, heads down.
Heads down. So crack my eggs. I'm cracking them on my countertop. 2 eggs. Find somewhere to put my shells. This is all very impromptu, by the way, and it is going to take the whole hour at least for us to make this because I'm going to bake it. I will say now I have actually baked one earlier so I can share it with you because it would take so long to actually cool down. So we've got 2 eggs in there. I wanted a tablespoon of vanilla.
Or even a teaspoon.
A teaspoon of vanilla, Michelle, correct. And I always sort of eyeball my vanilla. When you're putting eggs into things, it's not a bad time to add a little bit of vanilla. It just takes the essence, the edge off of the egginess. Now, I have actually got 2/3 of a cup of soft brown sugar, which I've compacted. But I'm not going to use all of this soft brown sugar. And I'll tell you why. Can people see this over here, Michelle?
Yes.
I'm going to take a little bit of the soft brown sugar out. So all the measurements are written on the below the video, and I'm going to put some dark molasses in. Brown sugar has naturally occurring molasses in it, but this sugar is not demerara, so I'm going to just top that up. Can you see that? With a little bit of dark molasses. It's just going to add an extra depth of smokiness to my banana bread, but it's also going to make my light brown or soft brown sugar into very dark sugar. So that's all going in.
Amy says, my daughter loves mashing the bananas. She is 2.
Mashed bananas. The Wiggles. Did the Wiggles used to do a mashed banana song?
Mashed banana, mashed potato.
Mashed banana. They used to do...
No, mashed banana, I don't know, a long time ago that.
A long time ago.
Wow.
Let's have a little look at the comments.
Lots of comments coming through.
Now, here's where I'm going to mix things up a little bit. I'm going to be using coconut oil. Now, really, you can use any oil you want. You can use a vegetable oil. You can even use butter. We just want a fat in the bread to keep the moisture level in there. If you don't put oils into your banana bread, it will get dry because it's a long cook. So I'm going with coconut oil, and I'm going with half a cup. So this is a little bit expensive. It's a bit expensive way of doing it, and you can use the actual hard coconut oil, by the way, which is quite often cheaper in the shops, I think. So half a cup coconut oil. I'm going to put a bit of cinnamon in as well, just to, because cinnamon is optional. If you don't like it, go for cinnamon or nutmeg. I'm going to put a whole teaspoon in, but I'm probably going to get my half teaspoon measurement because I don't think the full teaspoon will fit in this little glass jar. Got to just take the top off of it. So half a teaspoon and half a teaspoon. Now you could use nutmeg as well. You could use cardamom. Those sort of sweet, what I call the sweet spices. You could even use a pumpkin spice if you really wanted to. Right, now I'm going to whisk this up into a batter. So you want to come up to me?
I've just gone down to you.
Just gone down? Were you up to me before?
I was up to you before. Norma Jean says, I add walnuts and coconut to make my banana bread. It's how we Mexicans make them.
I've got one of these bowls with a sort of edge. Do you reckon I dare turn it on the side now? I don't think I will. Oh, should have put something soft under here. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Save the noise. I'm just going to pop a tea towel under there. Who said that?
Norma Jean, it's how the Mexicans make it. Walnuts and coconut.
We are going to be using walnuts, and I've got coconut oil in here.
And Chris Michelle says walnuts make the best. And Amy says, I love chocolate chips in banana bread.
Yeah, I like chocolate chips sometimes in banana bread. When I'm going for that really sort of caramelised, spicy flavour. Are we up to me on the camera now?
Oh, no, sorry.
When I'm going for those sort of caramel, sugary, I don't tend to put chocolate. But chocolate works really well in banana bread. You can go with chocolate chips, or you can get like a really good high cocoa chocolate and just break it up and put it through. Walnuts goes well. Sometimes I like to put fruit in, like dried cranberries, even apricots and raisins go very well. You'd probably put in about maybe half a cup of fruit in a. We're doing a. Am I to camera? Yeah.
Yes.
We're doing a pound loaf tin, so I'm not sure the exact measurement.
It's 8.5 by 4.5 inches.
8.5 by 4.5 inches, and I've actually just lined the tin with some butter. I don't know if you can see in there, but I've sort of smeared some butter on the inside. I'm going to put a little bit of flour. You can line the tins with a bit of baking paper, but I generally find, because this is quite a rich, oily cake, that it'll come out quite easily.
Aussie Sat says, yes, we're closed for the week. The boss is giving everyone a break. I'm having friends over for Australia Day.
Beautiful.
What are you guys doing? Where are you now? Still in Canberra?
No, we're in Melbourne. Aussie Zach. We're in Melbourne. Excuse me while I stop and have a little slurp of my coffee. Greetings from Ohio, I saw there. Are there any questions I need to answer there, Michelle, on the live stream while I just take a coffee break?
We just take coffee. We've got people from New York. Draw something's from New York. Charisma is from Ohio. Somebody was from Netherlands. Bianca is from Netherlands.
Wow.
Amsterdam.
Chicago, I see there. Norma Jean.
So everyone's from all over, so that's good. So Ruby Slipper says, I usually use my whisk to mash up bananas. One less dirty fork, I'm lazy.
I find with a whisk, if you need a fairly stiff whisk to do that, but if you try to do it with the whisk, it ends up all sort of, you quite often don't get the pressure to break the banana up. And yeah, I know where you're coming from. I'm trying to be philosophical as to why. And I'm always one for not particularly using too much dirty stuff in the kitchen. Now I'm going with are we up camera or down camera?
Up camera.
So I'm going with a wholemeal plain flour. The reason I'm doing this, a lot of cakes and breads, when you bake with a wholemeal flour, it can get quite dry. I don't like wholemeal flour that often, but with a banana bread or a pumpkin bread, or what's another example of a nice, like a carrot cake can work very well. Wholemeal flour works quite nice. It just adds a sort of nutty texture to it, and it adds more richness and colour. So I am going to go with a White Wings, no sponsorship, wholemeal plain flour. And I want I'm going to weigh this actually. And I've always say about flour, I've got the cup measurements, but you know, you never can be too accurate with cup measurements. So I'm going to pop this on the scales. Are we down at the moment?
Going down. So we've got Byron says is based in Wisconsin, and then Raggy is in Mississippi, and Shona's in Connecticut, and Mr. O'Clunker's in Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. I hope I said that right.
Shenandoah. Is Shenandoah?
Shenandoah.
Shenandoah. I love Shenandoah, Virginia. What's the song, Mr. O'Clunker, with Shenandoah? Is that Country Roads, isn't it? Raggy, play us a little bit of Country Roads. Shenandoah, West Virginia. Is it West Virginia?
Yeah. Yes, well, Virginia. So George something says, I have a question. What if they use vegetable oil instead of coconut oil? Does it make a big difference?
Not a big difference. Not a big difference. The coconut oil imparts a good quality coconut oil, a little coconut flavour to it. But I suggest you use any oil that you've got. Lighter oils are generally better, so you don't want those very heavy sort of thick vegetable oils. Maybe something like a fairly light canola oil or rice bran oil. You can use almost any oil, and butter also. A lot of times I'll use butter if I haven't got an oil. Just need a fat content in there. So Raggy's in. Hello, buddy. And sorry last week when we did the live show, everybody. We had so many technical hitches. I think in the end it was only about sort of 30 minutes long, but yeah. Anyway, let's get and weigh this flour. How much flour did I say? 200 grams. So I reckon that's about 1.5 cups, but I'm going to shake it into my cup. I'm not going to pack it in. So let's pop that in there. That is 132 grams. So I want to bring that up to about 200 grams. It's probably about half a cup. Let's just stop a little short. 201 grams. That is perfect.
Ruby Super says, my roommate threw away my scales, Judge Steve. What is her punishment?
Where did she throw it, Ruby? Because that's where your roommate needs to go. in the trash until she comes back with the scales. Bad girl. A bit of baking powder. Now, I did notice earlier today, I want a couple of teaspoons. You know when you open up your baking, am I top or down?
You're down. You're up now. Sorry.
Instruct Michelle if she gets it wrong. She's got to turn that camera down. Look, I'm getting a bit low on baking powder, and we need a couple of teaspoons. But we do need a leavening agent, although there is egg in there as well.
I'm trying to read, that's why.
Couple of teaspoons. Poor Michelle, she's got to read the comments and she's operating the cameras. Normally I operate the cameras. So a bit of baking paper, bit of baking powder, and am I up or down?
You're up.
I'm up. So I'm going to work to the top camera. About half a teaspoon of salt. Got to season it, lift those flavours, got to put some salt in there. Now I've got poppy seeds. Another non-sponsor, Hoyt's poppy seeds. I don't normally buy Hoyt's. I normally buy these in the Asian stores and get great big bags of them, but we needed them and I didn't have any. So I'm going to go with 1/4 cup, quite a lot of poppy seeds in here. So I'm going to add, camera down, and I'm just going to add a full 1/4 cup of poppy seeds in. And I've also got good old Hoyt's. They're doing well today, getting lots of coverage. I'm also going to go with 1/4 cup of. I love the nutty flavour that sesame seeds add, so they're going in as well. We are getting there. We're pretty much there, apart from I've toasted some walnuts. So now I'm just going to. Are we camera down?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to mix that together. I'm going to start for a few seconds. I'm not going to over mix this.
Put the oven on.
Oh yeah, I should put the oven on 175. It's about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Walnuts. Camera. Which camera am I on, Michelle? I've toasted these walnuts, so they've got a little extra sort of crispiness to them. I'm not going to chop them up. A lot of people chop them up. I like whole walnuts in mine. I like to come across a great big piece of walnut, and I like it when you cut through and you can get those big lumps of walnut in there. So let's get this mixed up, and then we can have a chat with you guys. So my oven is on. A little mix through. I'm not going to over mix. Are we camera down at the moment?
Yes, wow, that's the most interesting banana bread I've ever seen.
Look at the colours in there.
I love the seeds.
the seeds, the richness, the little extra molasses in there. I've got my my pound baking tray. I'm going to add a little sprinkle, just a little bit of flour, and then I'm just tapping it round, and it'll stick to the butter. And the reason we're doing this, I'm going to do it over my
A bit more flour in there.
no, it'll be enough. It'll be enough, he says confidently. You know, if Michelle says I need a bit more flour in there, she's probably right. And I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit more on that bottom edge. She's right again.
Baggy says yo on the whole walnuts. And I think Byron wants you to make meatballs.
Now I'm going to let that little bit of extra flour go into the mix. And that won't harm. So you can see now that the tin is lined with butter and it's lined with a little bit of flour, which is just going to help. I'm not even going to bother mixing that last little bit in. Can you guys all see? Is the camera good? I'm probably
good.
Pouring that into the baking tin. Yum, yum, look at that. So we've got those whole little lumps of banana in there. And you can, we were tempted at one point to add, we have a lot of cranberries at the moment, dried cranberries. Camera's down, Michelle, is it?
Down,
good,
down,
good, good.
yeah.
So I'm just going to get the last of this batter out. Now the last thing I'm going to do before I pop this in the oven, it's going to bake for about 50 minutes to an hour. The last thing I'm going to do, I barely need to flatten that to be honest. Pop my bowl away. Whoops, got some more batter there. I am just going to lick my fingers.
It's alright, you were down, you didn't see that. I'll put them up now.
No, come back down,
Oh,
come back down. So I've got some sugar, just some regular white sugar. This is just some caster sugar. I'm going to sprinkle it over the top fairly liberally because I want it to caramelize like a sort of toffee on top of this this bread. So I'm going to put this on. Hopefully it won't burn. And then I'm going to take some extra sesame seeds. I'm just going to sprinkle them over the top. Is my hand in the way of the camera? It's all good.
No, it's all good.
So extra sesame seeds and extra poppy seeds. And again, I want to be fairly liberal with these because I want them to sort of, when I cut into the bread, I want them to sort of fall off. So is that enough? No, let's go a little bit more.
Mary Hernandez says, love banana bread. And Gershona Smith says, I love that you don't waste the extra dusting flour, but shake it into the mix. I do too. I detest waste.
Detest waste. I even don't like washing my hands in the water there with those poppy seeds. So, there we go. Now, that's going, camera up.
More camera up.
That is going into the oven, as I say, I think about 50 minutes.
It's not hot yet.
It's not hot enough yet.
You're a bit late.
We'll wait just a few seconds. If you can just bring the camera down again, Michelle.
Yeah. Down. So
Now-
draw something says that I thought I was the only person that did that.
Did what?
Put the flour back into the mix. Everybody's doing it.
Look, oh, see all this on this spoon? Now that's waste. I think I'm still going to just...
I put it in. I thought you were going to eat it. I went up.
I don't like to ruin my topping. You watch, see that little bit there? That will... We'll see how that bakes. Mmm.
So Amy says, what kind of fruit do you recommend for banana bread? I love the seeds on top.
Is the camera up?
Yes.
Banana bread is already quite moist. It's got the oil in there, it's got the butter. As I said earlier on, I think I like cranberries. I also like apricots. I don't know why. Dried apricots, just diced small. The simplest thing is just golden raisins, really. Or currants.
Oh, currants. Oven's hot.
Oven's hot. Michelle's seen the light go off. So this is going in the oven. We are doing this live.
Oh, you've gone a bit dark because you've gone over there. You're back.
Now the idea today is to have a chat with you while that bakes. And if it gets a little bit tiresome or we run out of ideas and what have you, I have got one that I baked earlier this morning. We got up nice and early. But I want to show you this one baked because you've seen the process.
25 past 11, so it's an hour. 50 minutes to an hour.
So 11:15, you probably can't see the clock. Give me a shout, will you? 11:15, I'm going to take a look at it. It might be cooked enough.
So Ray Max Kitchen and Grill, greetings from North Carolina, my friend.
Oh, North Carolina. We've got Virginia, North Carolina,
Yeah.
Mississippi.
Sydney show's in. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Sydney show. I love that area, you know, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, just beautiful. Michelle and I drove down the down the Blue Ridge Causeway in the fall some years back, and it was just the most stunning. It was the most stunning thing, and it'll always be. We still want to go back. Probably in the next couple of years we will do. Gonna pop in and see my old mate Raggy. Hopefully, Raggy, one day. I keep saying it's going to happen. We had a lovely time up in Michigan as well, with a good friend of mine, friends of ours, Dave and Shirley, and that was in the winter time. What a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. There's so many gorgeous places around the world, and it's gorgeous here in Australia at the moment. We've got the weather coming up to Australia Day. It's going to be gorgeous. The beaches are going to be packed.
Ruby Slipper said, this week I made banana bread in cans. I should have took your hint on fruitcake and put a collar on the cans. Paper collar.
Yeah, banana cake in cans. Do you know what, Ruby? I don't know why. The way Michelle said it, I'm thinking you did it in the south of France in cans. But I thought, oh, you could have popped down to Saint-Tropez while you were there, and one of my favourite haunts.
Oh, Beast of Troll said I was on the Blue Ridge Parkway last summer.
Oh, isn't it gorgeous? The summer is wonderful, but the fall, the colours. I took photographs. They really didn't. Probably with the new cameras now, they would show those colours. I want to go there and just get some photographs. I don't know if we know anyone near the Blue Ridge. It would be good to stop there for a little while.
It says the rhododendron was blooming.
The rhododendrons, of course, there were rhododendrons all the way down the drives. I recognise the rhododendrons, so that would be even more beautiful, huh? Or as beautiful.
I think Raggy's asking about the cameras. 2 cameras, one set fixed on the preparation area, the other hand controlled on a tripod. Both run full time. Use the auditory track to perfectly sync the 2 tracks. Wood to see you.
What on earth are you on about, Raggy?
I couldn't even.
You are confusing Michelle now. She's had to go and have a lay down. Reading that, she'll be back in a minute. She's completely exhausted. But we are using 2 webcams here, Raggy. They're both reasonably good quality, so hopefully that it's coming out okay. I've got one pointing down, one pointing up. They should be synchronized together by the good charms of Google. And we do have good internet. I tried to tell people last week. I was so excited. We had good internet, and of course last week everything failed. I mean, the computers overheated. The temperature in last week's live show was 104 Fahrenheit. I think it was 40 something, 41, 42. And we tried to do it outside in the sun, and the computers just gnarled up something nasty. So. Let me have a little glance. Michelle's going to read the comments.
So, Gashona Smith says, my husband doesn't do well with bananas, so I never make banana bread. I'm going to have to try to make this for ladies get together. I just cannot wait to try this.
Beautiful.
Aussie Zach said, what are Michelle and you doing back in Melbourne so soon?
Well, Melbourne's home, Aussie Zach, and the family are here. So we've come back down to sort of plan the trip. I mean, the little trip up to Canberra was like a tester for us, just to sort of get some ideas of whether we could use the equipment we had. We couldn't. For instance, our phone and internet connection mobile was not good enough. We've had to invest in some other bits and pieces as well, which you'll see as we start. So that was a little tester for the Aussie road trip that we're doing, and now we're back home, just sort of like planning. How we're going to, we're driving across to Perth in a few months, couple of months time probably. I think we'll be going across to Adelaide, and then we're driving across the Nullarbor to Perth, and it's for us, things are planned as we go, so we have to sort of test the water and see if it works. Does the car work okay? Have we got enough space to carry the stuff we need? I think we're going to try and get a trailer, by the way. I think we're going to try and get a small trailer. And maybe something that we can camp if we want to stop on the road and do some filming on the road. So, but I'm not saying for sure what we're doing because everything always seems to change with us.
Raggie's still talking about the cameras. It's editing, Raggie. I don't understand any of that. You reading it?
Yeah, that's the thing, Raggy. I mean, with this, there's no two cameras, but it's all nice and easy. This is all live TV sort of style, so it's just cut and cut. The only thing I would have liked to have done, and I thought I was going to have, I have actually got one here, is a monitor. But I think the problem with my monitor is it's coming through the internet. So when I turn it on, as I've just done now, I'm about 40 seconds behind, so it looks. So when I go like this, nothing happens, you know, and it's quite disconcerting.
So Bianca says, "I love the video from Steve out of Oz." When we were out of Oz,
or when we were out of Oz, or when we were in Oz. We actually did. You know, we were looking at our Southeast Asia videos last week. And I was surprised. There's dozens and dozens of really good videos from Malaysia and Thailand. There's good cooking videos up there. If you haven't checked out, have we got a playlist of that stuff?
Yes.
I'll get Michelle to put it in the video description later on, so you'd have to come back and sort of see. But there is some really, from the very first time we left Australia about 2.5 years ago, coming up to 3 years now. And we arrived in Bangkok. That video, it really, I love watching them. And there's a Meklong railway video as well. Wow, it's going to get hot in here. I got this oven on at 180, 175, and the weather's. Sorry, stay on track, Stephen.
Bianca's going to bed because it's 1:32.
Good night, Bianca. Schlaf gut.
Let's get up at 7:30.
So I was watching. There's this lovely video where we go to a train station called the Meklong train station, and the train goes right the way through the marketplace. Some of you may have seen it. I'm sure some of you have seen it. But I'm literally, when I say right through the marketplace, they have to move the stalls and the vegetables back, and the train comes through the centre, and even the canopies that go over the market stalls, they pull back, and as the train sort of gets through the market, they just close back over, and it's to watch it. I mean, it's a health and safety nightmare, but it works. It's organic. It's really beautiful. Actually, the Meklong one, you can put a link up for that independently for people. No, later on. We'll do it later.
David nearly said, "Turn some more lights on." I think you just get a little bit dark when you go away from the counter, but we haven't really.
Okay, David. Well, we've got the big lights. You want to? Okay, David.
I'll be back.
Michelle will be back. My grip, or whatever, my stage hand is going to illuminate the set. But be prepared, you might see me for real. I don't think it wants to be too close though, Michelle. I think it can be way back so it just floods the room. If you could see what's going on in the background, for you, David, just for you, nobody else.
In this heat.
In this heat. Now, I was just saying how it was hot. Now it's going to be super hot. I reckon back on that upright wall there, Michelle, be good. Yeah. Can you put that? There you go, David. How good do I look now?
Right here?
Yeah. Yeah. Not too bright. Oh, David. That's hot now, man. Is that better?
It's when you walk away from the counter.
Normally we like the set if we're working anywhere, but I thought it would be okay.
So thanks.
David, if I start melting in a puddle of sweat here, it's all your fault. So there you are. Camera down.
Oh, camera down, hang on. Oh, the thingy's gone.
Camera down.
Yeah, camera down.
What you put? What?
I'm just
producer, director.
Gopher.
See, cup of coffee, banana.
Wendy said lights at camera
Whisk.
action.
Poppy seeds. Camera up.
Oh, there you go. Oh, David said there you go too.
Hot. Yeah.
So Byron says, "I would appreciate if you would make Swedish meatballs for the next live stream."
Byron, I have to say, I'd love to make Swedish meatballs, but you might notice the live streams are actually going to be a little bit like operating systems. The first live stream I didn't name, but the second live stream is B. B for banana bread. Okay, so you can guess the next live stream is going to be just titled something. It might not be in it. It will begin with C. Now, Swedish meatballs does not begin with C, so it won't be that. And I haven't decided what it is. So you can suggest a way. So you know how each time the phone upgrades and it says right now you've got gingerbread, now you've got ice cream sandwich, or your laptop upgrades if you've got a Mac and it's from Sierra to whatever, and they go through the alphabet, so everything gets named. Ice cream sandwich was I, so there J would have been
Jelly bean?
jelly beans.
We did the cake, didn't we?
Yes, so we are going to name each show by the letter of the alphabet. A was the first Ask Steve show that I did 3 weeks ago now. B was meant to be brioche last week, and we were just going to be talking about brioche.
But Gary Scott says Chinese meatballs begin with C. Carrot cake.
Chinese Swedish meatballs. I'm tempted to do that, Byron. Chinese Swedish meatballs. Swedish meatballs are super famous, and I think made more famous by that famous shopping group called IKEA. I think they kind of made Swedish meatballs. Isn't it the one sort of thing everybody buys when they go to IKEA? And IKEA funnels you through their shop. You get in. It's almost like the two shops in the world that get you in there and won't let you out. It's IKEA and Aldi or Lidl. You know, I think actually they're growing up a little bit in Aldi and Lidl. They will let you get out. But you know, when you go into Aldi and you're sort of there and you can't get back out, you've got your trolley and you can't get out because the barriers are behind you and you've got to go through the shop to get out. And I can never find anything in those shops, just full of biscuits and crackers and satellite dishes. You know, when you go into Aldi and you come out with like sort of a pile of chocolate biscuits and a satellite dish. I'm over that place.
Wendy says candy, the hard candy. My mum used to make it. Coming up with all their C's.
Oh, C's, candies.
Carrot cake.
It's got to be.
Cocoa van.
Oh God, don't make it too difficult for me. It's got to be a life. Chocolate.
Yes, that's a nice easy one, Gashona.
I could open a bar of chocolate. Now, it might not necessarily, like in the brioche episode I tried to do last week, we were just going to talk about brioche. So it could be something we just talk about, but it'd be fun. I don't think we'll be able to keep this up too much because I think once we start travelling across to Perth, we might struggle unless we're sort of like up to W and I do witchetty grubs in the outback somewhere, which could be kind of fun. We'll see.
Says no C, chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake. Byron's put in a request for a chocolate cake.
Yes.
I wonder.
It says candy, chocolate bar candy.
Oh wow! I'm hungry now.
Mm.
Stop it. No, carry on. Cease. Keep them. Think about a live show. Simple preparation. We can't do anything that needs rising or proving for many hours. So, although this cake will take.
Mm-hmm.
What do I love about Sweden? I actually have never been to Sweden, Byron, but I have been to quite a few Swedish food events, and you know I love all the sort of roll mops, and you know what a roll mop is? It's like the raw fishes and things, and I love the Swedish breads. Some of the Swedish breads are to die for. Hello, somebody's ringing. We're not going to answer, don't worry. That would be funny.
So Sydney Show says that's what I hate about Aldi. And Amy says, I know, I run in for one thing and I have to walk all 5 aisles.
You have to walk all 5 aisles and you find yourself coming out with a sort of a hobby horse or something. It's crazy. And most of, I'll be honest, most of the stuff they sell is not to the quality that you should be buying. If you really do need a barbecue, go and buy a nice quality one from somewhere. Do a bit of research. Don't come out with an Aldi barbecue that will rust after sort of a day and a half. And they look good. My mother used to have an Aldi TV, and she'd press the button, and it would come on about 5 minutes later, like the TVs used to in the 1970s. It was sort of like, bzz, zzz, ping, and then when she turned it off as well, it used to go down to a little circle. I mean that it was a flat screen TV, so just be careful.
So Raggy's got to run. I'm making by cold corn on the cob delights. Everybody loves them. I can't find a single video on YouTube that even mentions this dish. Most excellent side as well as main dish. Party on.
Cold corn. I mean, Raggy, corn on the cob or corn on the cob. One of my favourite foods of all time. So you're just doing cold corns, cutting them up. I'm guessing you're
Send us the recipe, Raggy.
Send me what you're doing, Raggy. I love corn on the cob. Bye, mate. Take care.
You meant that. I realised that, Raggy. I just read it wrong.
Yeah, I'm old. Raggy, you're old. If anyone hasn't checked out Raggy's channel, do get across and check him out because he's not old. He's like a child at heart, is Raggy. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. Raggy, you've got all the sort of enthusiasm and love of a much younger guy, even though you are an old codger.
So Patty says, what about something to do with coconuts?
Coconuts. Do you know, Patty? Welcome, by the way, Patty. I haven't actually given it a lot of thought, so I'm going to look through these comments later on and see if there's anything that jumps out.
Cake. We were talking about coconut cake.
Oh man, I promised to do a recipe for a young girl who's lactose intolerant before Christmas, and I just haven't had time. We've run out, so we maybe do something lactose free. That would be kind of fun. That would be really nice. So let's have a think about that.
Byron says, how about carrot salad?
you're what's the word? Picking at straws there. But yes, carrot salad or carrot Swedish meatballs, indeed, Byron. Let's have a little look how my now don't be tempted to open your oven. And by the way, you know that little splodge, that little bit extra, it's spoiled the top of my carrot cake. It's really made an ugly mark on the top of it. But we won't think of it as a spoil. We'll think of it as one of those sort of little idiosyncrasies that make a carrot cake special, you know? So it's like an uncle with a crooked nose or somebody who's got a little bit of a blemish. Cindy Crawford used to have a little, spot on the side of her face that they called a beauty spot. So we'll look at this blemish as a beauty spot. It's what's going to make this carrot cake so much more beautiful than other carrot cakes, even though it looks like a sort of a dodgy scar.
So Annie says cod.
God.
And Amy says, yes, please, I'm lactose intolerant as well.
Well, Amy, there's a chap on Facebook who asked me very nicely if I'd do some lactose intolerant stuff for his granddaughter, and I said I would, and then things got away with me. But I keep seeing it on my list of things to do, so it's going to happen. And just the fact that the chap wanted to do it for his granddaughter really sort of appealed to me, you know. And I wanted to. She likes coconut, doesn't she? Yes. She likes things with coconut in.
Ebba Little says, hello, what about coconut frozen something that might keep you cooler?
Yes, Ebba Little, coconut frozen something. That's what I could do with like a great big sort of frozen coconut helmet on today, because it's kind of getting a little bit warm. And I've got to keep the waistcoat on because I think it looks nice.
David Neely says, make the banana bread, Steve. Maybe you, David.
Carrot and banana. We do carrot bread. And we do carrot cake next week. No, it's too close to banana bread. David, the banana bread is in the oven. You saw me making it at the beginning, no. If you didn't, you'll have to watch it back later. The banana bread is made. I wanted to get that going because we've got to bake it until another 30 minutes.
At least.
So I'm just going to ramble and chat with you all. I know it's a little bit crazy, but what we are going to do now is Michelle's going to pull up some of the questions that I meant to answer last week. So if she could pop those up on the screen and maybe just read them out to me. Now there were at least, I think we're going to start with the questions about the Branston pickle. And there were at least 4, 5, 6, maybe even more questions on Branston pickles. So what were they, Michelle?
Okay, Ebba Little says, I've never heard of Branston pickles, so found this very interesting. It has a lot of really nummy stuff in it. According to the written recipe, you'd eat it with cheese and crusty bread. Is it sweet then?
Ebba Little, it is. It's a little bit sweet. It's on that sort of sweet side, but it isn't because you've got the the vinegar in there. It's a little bit like many relishes that you have. And traditionally in the UK, for example, the Brits tend to just almost call it pass the pickle. You know, they say pass the pickle. They don't tend to differentiate between one pickle and the next pickle. I'm putting the lids on my poppy seeds and sesame seeds, and they've probably been mixed over, so disaster. So it's, how can I describe it? It's a bit like a relish, but with larger chunks in it. It's a little bit sweet, like a sweet relish, but it's normally served with almost anything. We particularly in the UK, the Brits and the Australians particularly like it with cheese and things. So a little bit of crusty bread and some cheese and Branston pickle is just superb.
Cheese and pickle sandwich.
Cheese and pickle sandwich, actually, yeah. Cheese and pickle sandwich, very, very popular. It's just sliced cheddar cheese, white bread quite often, but I prefer it in like a baguette or something like that. And Branston pickle goes really well. And there were 2 or 3 other questions, just whiz through them and I'll...
Tropic Lush says, I'm back, my phone died.
Oh.
I don't know how to say this. KLM Coon said, is this stored in the cupboard or the refrigerator?
And what are the other ones to go through more? And I'll cover them.
So this Linda says, I've been busy fermenting some sauerkraut and other things, so I'm going to make this and hopefully it turns out like yours. How would you eat this?
Okay, well I think I've possibly covered that. I think Linda had another question.
Steve, do you store this in the refrigerator after 3 to 4 weeks?
So I think a lot of the questions were generally then about storing. Pickles like this, when I make a pickle like this, I can store it just in the larder in a cool cupboard for months and months. I mean, almost years and years. You could certainly, if you've sterilised your jars well, you could store it for a year comfortably in just a cupboard. Once you crack it open, it's sometimes a good idea to keep it in the fridge. And I don't want it in the fridge too quick because once your pickles go cold, I find they lose some of their flavour. I like them to be at room temperature when they're served. So if I open the pickle, I quite often keep it out on the side for at least a week or 10 days. And then if I think it's not going down quickly enough, I will store it in the fridge. It's much the same with stuff I buy in the shops, to be honest. I prefer pickles at room temperature. They taste better. So that's questions on the Branston pickle. Was there another question there? Did I cover most of those?
You did all of those, yes. I've now put up the one that's in Russian or whatever, and I can't read it. Ketchup.
All right, now Dave Neely says hi, Ebba. So I got a question. Did you put it up on the screen?
It's up on the screen.
Just so that you know, sometimes people post questions in languages that we don't understand, and I often still look at them because I want to know. And I just thought this was quite interesting. Somebody posted on there in Russian, and when I translated it, it was basically telling me something. It's not a question, but it was saying that Donald Trump comes from the family of the Heinz family, because it was on the video for Heinz ketchup. And I think, so Donald Trump, the surname Trump is a German surname, and I think the Donald's family originally came over from, I'm going to guess now, I think it's called Augsburg. I'm probably wrong. No, I didn't tell Michelle. But they came, but the Heinz family, the family that invented the Heinz baked beans, Heinz ketchup, also came from the same very small town in Germany back in sort of the late 1800s. So the families have only been there for not much longer than 100 years. And there is connections. I believe the Trump family and the Heinz family have got share grandfathers or something like that. So yeah, remarkably, Donald Trump is loosely connected apparently with Heinz baked beans and tomato ketchup. And I don't know if there's a direct family link to it, but certainly they both came from their heritage comes from that same, and Trump is a German surname, as is Heinz is a German surname. So I thought it was quite interesting. I thought I'd share it with you.
So Sean says hello from Canada. He's just come in.
Hi Sean, how are you? I'm just trying to see the comment there. Where's Sean's comment? Further up.
At the bottom.
Hello Sean.
Because it's not Sean, it's...
Oh yes, yeah.
remember?
I'm seeing, yeah. I'm Sean, I'm looking down to see Sean. And I forgot you've got the unusual name. Pirafan Nordri, I think it was. I can't remember the exact pronunciation.
I'll put the next question up.
And David nearly said, "Do you like Trump?"
Oh.
Politicians in general, David, I haven't a lot of time for them. Trump is now a politician, so I try not to get too involved. I think they've all forgotten who they work for. So yes, and they're very much grandiose for basically civil servants. But
Next question.
yes, go on.
Jasper Edwards says, can I use couscous feta in short crust pastry?
Now, Jasper. I don't know if Jasper's in. He might know. Jasper often gets in. He'll probably watch it later on if he hasn't. He was asking if you can use. Can you pronounce it, Michelle? Basically, I think it's
Kokos. Kokos feta.
Kokos feta, cocoa butter, coconut butter, for a short. For a which was the recipe?
On the Nutella braided bread.
Right. So he's asking about it for a bread that is an enriched bread, a bit like a brioche bread. And yes, you can. Coconut butters, any fats really. I'd be a little wary about using coconut butter. I think regular butter works well, Jasper. But certainly, when you talk about adding any fat to a flour bread, or you basically it's called shortening. I mean, butter is called shortening, lard's called shortening, duck fat's called shortening, and coconut butter is called shortening. It shortens the strands of the gluten, so it inhibits the growth of gluten. God, sorry, it could get a bit boring. I sound like a teacher at school. And you can. I never tried to use coconut oil in an enriched style dough, but I suspect it would work fairly well. You'd probably want to experiment with something not like the Nutella braided bread, because that is a big recipe, and you wouldn't want it to go wrong. I'd try it with a simple brioche style bread, and see how well it works. Excuse me.
So Draw Something says, hi, I'm back. Sorry, was animating. I love listening to this live stream while animating.
Oh, welcome back. Draw Something, do I know your channel? I've got a feeling you could possibly be a channel I've come across before. I do watch a lot of drawing channels. I'm not the best of drawers, but I like to draw.
So we've got questions on the jerky.
Okay, more questions.
More questions. Michael Markle says, hi, I'm wondering how would you store this without freezer or fridge for long term, without it spoiling for a long period of time stored? And I like your video, it looks very good.
What was the name of the person?
Michael.
Michael asked how you store jerky. Jerky, by its very nature, is a cured meat. So it was made originally by, I won't say like this group of people, because every country in the world has a variation of jerky going back through history. People were always trying to cure meats, and whether they were doing fish or poultry or beef, they were basically drawing the moisture out. So once the moisture is out of the meat, it won't spoil and it won't go rotten. The bacteria can't grow in meat that has no moisture in it, or technically it can't grow the harmful bacteria. So storing jerky, I mean, when we went traveling with our kids in a camper some years back, we had it hanging. We had a whole big batch of jerky just hanging on ropes at the back of the van, and the kids would sort of lean over and break one off and eat it, and it was hung up on that van for probably 3 or 4 months.
Yes, get harder and harder, drier and drier.
That's the only thing. Michelle's just hit the nail on the head. Jerky, when it gets that optimum point that you really enjoy it, it will just get tougher and tougher. And if you store it, and that's why they tend to vacuum pack it, to stop the evaporation process. If you actually if you let jerky just hang, it won't go off. As long as there's good ventilation and it's not too damp, it won't go off almost indefinitely, but it will get drier and drier, and eventually it will be like the boot leather on the bottom of your shoes. You will struggle to chew it, it'll get so hard. But if the flavors will intensify as it cures, so you don't need to store it. Definitely don't store it in the fridge. That would be a real no-no, because then you're introducing all sorts of contaminants and moisture and coolness, which is not good, and there's no airflow through a fridge. I tend to keep my jerky just hung up. It never lasts much longer than a week and 2 weeks at the most, and it's going to be eaten because everybody loves it. And it's never going to have any problems in a couple of weeks just hanging somewhere in the house where there's good airflow. Or you can, if you want to do it long term, get it to that optimum point and then vacuum seal it, and it will last for years. So I hope that answers your question.
Shona says, wow, that bit about the meaning of shortening was interesting. I always wondered why it was called shortening.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Yeah, there's always an explanation. With everything we do, I try to cover some of that when I'm cooking to try and explain to people, but I also want to keep the videos reasonably compact, otherwise I prattle on forever. But it's always interesting to know why is something called shortening. I've got a good video. I'll get Michelle to put it in the actual comments of the video for later viewing. Shows you how gluten forms in flour. So we'll actually take plain flour, and we'll take bread flour, and we'll actually mix it together until we get the gluten out of it. So what you see is when I put that flour into water and keep massaging it together, eventually you'll end up with what feels like a rubber band. It looks like a giant rubber ball. And if you're using bread flour, you'll find you get a big ball, almost something the size of a golf ball, of really elastic gluten. And if you're using plain flour, you'll end up with just a very small amount because there's less gluten in it. And the difference, it just shows you why we use bread flour. It's quite interesting. It's a good video to watch. If you haven't seen it, it's a little bit of fun.
Next question.
Now, I think this Wendy's question is coming up, Wendy. So just a moment, Wendy, we'll get to you. I think you asked this a couple of weeks ago, and I will address it, but when it's ready, it might be next.
Talking about flour a bit more. Chateau Versailles says, I realise this video is 3 years old, but I'm hoping you'll still answer my question. When you say to pop the dough somewhere warm for it to double in size, can you make some suggestions, please? Where I live, it's pretty cold all year round, and my kitchen window doesn't get much sunlight. We're putting it in the oven at a low temperature or near a heater.
Okay, got the gist. And that's Chateau Versailles?
Yeah.
Now, I just assumed that Chateau Versailles is in France, and probably in the hills if it's cooler weather all year round. I'm not sure. And I've made many a loaf of bread in France, so I know what they're talking about. When you're trying to proof your dough, it's always a problem. You know, if you put the dough out, if you're in a hot, warm climate, you pop it out in the warmth, it's going to dry out. So the answer to that then is to cover it in a cling wrap or a silicone cover to trap the moisture in so that the bread doesn't dry out while the lovely heat from your ambient temperature allows that bread to expand. Many, many times we've lived in places where it's not warm enough to barely rise bread, and you end up, you know, you pop it on the side and 4 days later it still hasn't expanded. And what I tend to do then is I'll take my oven and just turn it on to the very lowest setting. If it's an electric oven, it's usually about 50 degrees Celsius, and I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit. Maybe somebody will pop that up for me. And when it clicks off, I'll leave my bread in the bowl. I'll cover it in cling wrap or a silicone, so you seal the moisture in. And when the temperature clicks off, don't leave the oven on, even though it's 50 degrees. It'll probably be too hot for the bread. Turn the oven off. Turn the oven light on if you have it, and pop your bread into the oven, close the door. That way the ambient temperature inside the oven stays below 50 degrees Celsius, if anyone wants to put up Fahrenheit, and it arrives beautifully. And that's one way. One time, one winter here in Australia, and it does get cooler, I sometimes I'm doing breads where you can't cover it over. Maybe I'm doing a sourdough loaf and you can't. This is a really bad bit of advice, but we had like an atomizer, like one of those little things that blows sort of moisture into the air. And I used to stand that just inside the oven with I'd do that temperature trick, bring it up to temperature, and I'd pop that just inside the oven. It was only a little small thing, and that would add a lot of moisture. Now, if you are lucky, you'll have a proving oven at home. Some of you may have it. If you're lucky, and that will keep the moisture levels up. If you're not, you can improvise, but there's all sorts of ways. You need to try and think of ways of keeping that temperature as warm. So yes, I would say where you are, turn your oven on, let it come up to temperature, turn it off, pop your bread in there, and you'll probably find that will rise within sort of 45 minutes to an hour at the most.
Or near a heater, because they asked, or near a heater.
If you're in France and you've got a poêle, like a log oven, then put it near the log oven. But again, you don't want it to dry out, so cover it.
Okay, next question.
Yep.
Next question. Okay, Ruby Slitters. Question.
Ruby asked a question. Now, these questions were asked in the last live show, and I thought, oh, well, there's some good. I missed them because I was chatting, so I'm going to go through them quickly.
So, I was sick during the holidays and have a large fruitcake left. How do you store it and for how long?
Ruby, you probably already dealt with this, but I'm sorry to hear you were sick, and I hope you're feeling a lot better. And Ruby was in earlier on. She might have gone off to do something. But when you've got a fruitcake, and a fruitcake's almost like jerky, it lasts forever and ever. You see sometimes examples of fruitcakes from the royal wedding that are sold on the internet. There's a 20 years old. So fruitcake will last and last and last. But the most important thing with the fruitcake is to keep it cool, not moist. So you don't want to, if you've got a cupboard like a larder that gets damp, then it wouldn't go in there. But you can keep it in a regular cupboard, and then we tend to wrap it in wax paper and foil.
Oh, yeah, wax paper.
Quite often I will wrap it in wax paper, and then I'll wrap it in foil and put it in a cupboard. In a dark cupboard, it will last till next year, no trouble at all. So that's the way I tend to store it. In the old days, people used to keep them in the big biscuit tin, so you could pop it in the biscuit tin, but I still think you should then wrap it in foil and put it in the biscuit tin. But it's quite a good dark, cool area to keep it.
So Shona's worked out 50 degrees C is 122F according to my computer, but they usually say 105F for proofing.
Yes, so that's why I'm saying 50 is too hot, but if you bring it up to that, and when you open the door, a little bit of the heat comes out and you pop it in, it's going to be about 105 or 45 degrees Celsius. So you can't, that's why I must reiterate, don't leave it at 50 degrees. Most ovens are too hot, even on their lowest setting, and your yeast will die. So another little important thing, it must be turned off, and you must don't put it in and then turn the oven off. Turn the oven off, open the door, put your pot in there, close it up. That initial little bit of hot air that comes out the oven, warm air, brings that temperature down to about 105, and I find that works perfectly for me.
40.5.
And then having the light on in the oven just sort of maintains the temperature, because your oven generally is fairly well insulated, so it will stay at that temperature for at least an hour. Bye. Is that David leaving?
Oh, David, yes. Bye.
Bye, David.
Okay, so we've got to go. Talk to you next time.
Sorry, buddy, if I missed you, but take care. Do you want to have a quick look at in the chat?
Well,
and see
Wendy's
if there's
questions come up now. When cooking
Wendy.
shrimp, my husband always tells me not to overcook it because it will have a fish taste. Is that true? I don't believe him.
You're right not to believe him, Wendy. No, not really. I mean, the problem with shrimp, if you overcook it, it will be like a bullet. Shrimp, is a little bit like good steak. It's not got a lot of fat in it, so if you cook it too long, it will become very tough. Even try and cook it for a good 15 minutes or so, and it literally will be like a little rubber bullet. So it's better to not overcook shrimp, but in many ways the flavour starts to leave the shrimp if you overcook it. So I'd say it's almost the opposite. But what did he say it tastes like?
It will have a fish taste. When
Fish
cooking
taste.
shrimp, it's not to overcook it because it will have a fish taste.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's
She suggests. So we don't believe him.
Yeah. So I say, don't believe him, Wendy.
You win, Wendy.
You win, but don't overcook it anyway. If he really look, if he likes his shrimp overcooked, then overcook his shrimp. And you know, some people like there's a beautiful piece of beef cooked within an inch of its life, and it's like the sole of a shoe. And if they like it like that, there's no reason why they shouldn't have it like that. It's crazy to say to someone, you've got to eat it this way. But yes, he's lying to you. It can't taste more fishy when it's more cooked.
So we've got one more question on here. So Gizam Aldegan says, what about using fresh garlic paste instead of powder? And that's in how to make the best.
All right. Sorry, Michelle, interrupt you. On garlic bread, he was asking whether or not we could just use fresh garlic, because I think on my perfect garlic bread, and it is, if you haven't made that garlic bread, by the way, do. It is so good. I mean, garlic bread quite often when you make it can be a little bit disappointing, particularly if you just put a load of garlic butter in some bread. It can be a little disappointing, but this garlic bread is really good. Now, you've got to be careful with fresh garlic, particularly if you're doing it the way I'm showing on there, because garlic salts and garlic are infused with garlic. They have the flavour of garlic because they've been dehydrated garlic mixed with them, or sometimes they've just been in a. You can put garlic into salt, and it will flavour the salt. Am I making sense? Tell me if I'm not making sense. But if you put garlic onto things, as soon as garlic burns, it becomes bitter, really bitter. It's not nice. Burnt garlic, it's just a horrible taste. So you've got to be careful if you put garlic, fresh garlic onto this beautiful pizza base that I've talked about, and then you slice it up. The moment it becomes black, it becomes bitter. So I'd say be careful. I would rather put garlic on. You can cut a slice of garlic in half and just rub it onto cooked pizza, then you'll get in the essence. You'll be surprised how much flavour that imparts onto the bread. But no, be careful with fresh garlic when you're doing roasting. If it gets dark, it will become very bitter, sour almost.
Shona Smith says, also, if shrimp is frozen, be sure to defrost it in cold water. Warm water makes it tough also. Yes, because if the water's too hot, it does tend to sort of partially cook. I mean, better if you... Prawn doesn't take long to defrost. Okay, I'm just going to take a quick look. Are there any other questions? Oh, it's looking nice. Looking good. Looking beautiful. Oh, this is going to be so good. I'm sorry for those of you that couldn't hang around to the end, and those of you that have come halfway through. The smell in here is so good, so good. So Ever Little says, I make jerky quite often. It doesn't last long, but we don't have anywhere to hang it, so I just keep it standing up in a glass jar without a lid. It doesn't last long though. No. If a glass jar without a lid, that's why it's not lasting long, Ever Little, because you can get in there quickly and take it out. We used to get 2 or 3 pounds of beef, and we'd make it into jerky, and because my kids love it, I love it, Michelle loves it. Nobody doesn't love the jerky, so it goes so quickly. It's never been a problem. It's never been a problem. Actually, when we went on that holiday that time, I said to you, we had it hanging. It's quite strange because we were driving through Europe, and in the back of the van that we had, there was this big sort of pendulum of jerky swinging, and the kids could just sort of pull it off, or I could get them to pull a piece off for me, and they'd eat it for a little bit of protein while we were going around. So the Legend of Boggle says, Steve, can you cook us up some fun? It's in the oven. Always cooking up some fun. We've got some fun this weekend. There's some good recipes going up this weekend. We're going to have some fun. I want you to watch them this weekend. Anyone that's in the live show, check them out. 2 really fun recipes and something a little bit unusual. So I haven't edited it yet, so I haven't edited one of them yet, so I've got to work on that. But they're going to be fun. Watch them and comment. I'd love to hear what you have to say about them. Okay. So Michelle's going to just have a quick look through. We are coming up to close to time, and I'd say, looking at this garlic bread at the moment, it's looking gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, normally I would stick a skewer through. You could, if I had a skewer, I'd probably just prod into
the bread, but I know this is going to be cooked. I can see that. I'll explain to you a little bit why the crust is splitting. Shall I explain that to you before it comes out? When you bake, sometimes you'll get that tear or that split. Sometimes it can be quite pronounced. It's basically the unevenness of the heat of your oven. If the oven is hotter to one side, then it will rise quicker than the other side, so you'll get a split, a fissure that sort of breaks in the crust. If we could all have super perfect ovens, if the heat was perfect beyond belief, the bread would rise with a lovely even dough, and that's how quite often really good bakers' ovens can produce non-split loaves. At home, generally we're getting split loaves because there's a bit more heat one side, a bit less heat the other side, and you get that sort of one side of the bread goes yay, and the other side of the bread goes and you get a split.
So Sean says, only 27 likes. Come on, guys, poke the like button.
Oh yes, hit that like button. Thank you, Sean. Get everybody liking the video. People forget to, and I don't mind. That's quite all right. But hit that like button. It makes some difference apparently somewhere, but it makes me happy and it makes Sean happy. So
Wendy says, sorry, got excited, he was wrong, forgot to say thanks for answering, Steve.
You're all good, and I will be looking at questions throughout the I'm finding it hard to keep up with the question answering lately, so I've slowed down a little bit. I still read every single comment, by the way, but I just don't always have time to answer all of them, and I feel bad because I've spent almost right up until recently answering 99% of my comments, but I'm really struggling to keep up with them, so I thought answering some of the more interesting ones here on the live show would be fun.
So Draw Something says, what's the most difficult recipe you've ever cooked?
The most difficult recipe I've ever cooked? Trying to think. I mean, generally the most complicated recipes are cakes. When you're doing something like I did the Paddington Bear cake or Superman cake, or no, the Superman cake wasn't that difficult actually, but the Paddington Bear cake, where you're working with things that take a lot of time, a lot of artistic skill, and they're probably the most difficult recipes, I'd say. Most food is not that complicated to make. See, I don't have problems with souffles and things like that. I think I don't think there's anything particularly rocket science about making a souffle. People pick it up as if it's some sort of black art, but it's pretty fail safe, and even if they fail a little bit, they're usually still good. And sometimes breads can be tricky if you're working with different flours that you don't know. They can be the most frustrating. You're working with a bread flour that you're not familiar with, you don't know the gluten content, whether it's going to work well. They can be really tricky, and to the point where you sometimes have to give up if the flour doesn't work. But the most physically complicated ones quite often are big cakes and when they're shaped. Hope that answers that question. If I think of anything else, I will throw it out there.
John says, what would you accompany banana bread with?
I would accompany banana bread with a nice cup of coffee and salted butter, just a little bit. Whilst it's still warm, you slice it, slice it on, and a little bit of salted butter. I don't want anything really on there other than that little extra bit of oil and a little bit of salt. So that's the way I like banana bread. And I don't think there's anything else I like banana bread with other than a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Simple. How do you like your banana bread? You can have it warm with ice cream. That could be quite nice as well.
So Tia Manipon says, hi, please help. How do you keep bread soft, especially during winter?
How do you keep bread soft? Well, probably the simplest way to keep bread from going hard. That's why bread bins were invented, basically, to sort of encapsulate the bread in a little sort of cocoon where some bread bins have got so many holes in they barely work. But you can keep bread very soft by keeping it in a plastic bag or like a butcher's bag. Michelle's vanished. And you can rehydrate that bread by warming it up in the oven. Is that kind of getting to answer your question? Now I've got to be careful because the timing is getting close. I'm just going to get my chopping board for me.
Bread knife?
I have got the bread knife.
That's right.
Michelle has gone to get my bread knife. I have got.
Dear.
So, what would you say, Michelle? Keeping your bread fresh in there, keeping it soft. I'm thinking just plastic
Yes.
bags.
Plastic bags. Wrapped.
But actually,
Stamped
one of the
tea towel.
nicest things to keep in bread is paper bags.
Yes.
You know what? If you get a paper bag and put your bread into a paper bag, it will keep the bread soft, but not too soft. If you put it in a plastic bag, sometimes it gets a little bit sort of gummy, and it can encourage it going off as well. Probably paper bags, I think.
Yes.
When we used to have our bread all the time, paper bags kept it quite well. Now, don't forget, bread freezes so well. I mean, to be honest, you know, if you get more loaves than you need, pop them in the freezer because they freeze so well and they defrost super quickly.
Always slice them before you freeze them.
Yeah, we always slice them before we freeze them.
And it's 15:15, so I get that out of the oven.
Now, we're bringing, this is a full live show. I'm going to pop let's put that camera down so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to pop a tea towel down there.
Olga Shona says I love cream cheese or neuf châtel on banana bread. Of course, butter is always delicious too, but it's good just as it is.
Look at that. See that? See that? Cindy Crawford would be proud of that.
Looks like a little bird.
Looks like a little, little chick. How gorgeous. Have I got that to camera? Because I can't see.
Yes, it's to camera.
How absolutely gorgeous does that look? Now, and how good does it smell? Now I'm going to take some photographs.
Turn the oven off because it's cool it down a little bit.
And I'm going to pop them later on onto Facebook so you can actually see.
All your poppy seeds are in the middle.
All my poppy seeds are in the middle. Michelle's already given me trouble. See, this is the sort of thing she does to me.
Well, I thought it might be burnt, but it's not actually burnt.
Camera up. So what I'm going to do is take some pictures. What I'm going to do is take a picture of the one I did earlier as well, and I'll pop them onto Facebook and I will put them onto Instagram as well, so you can actually see just how gorgeous that looks. All right. Now, with a bread like this, you want it to cool down. And which camera are we on now? You want it to cool down for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then you're just going to tip it out. And I bet you this will just drop out of the tin. I haven't used this tin before. I've actually borrowed it from a family member at a different house, but I still think it'll just drop straight out of there. And this strange little nodule on there, quite looking forward to this. So who said cream cheese? Cream cheese works very well. You're right there. Actually, a nice bit of Philadelphia or a similar sort of cream cheese. That is one other thing that I really enjoy with banana bread.
Yeah, Daniel said that looks cool.
It does look gorgeous. Let's put that Can you see that?
Yeah. And Beast Troll said Nutella is good on banana bread.
Look, you're right. Everything's good on banana bread. Nutella would be nice on banana bread.
Says, oh, I never thought of Nutella.
But I would see, I go back to my childhood then, Beast Troll, and I have to have butter and Nutella. When I was younger, a friend of my mother used to make English muffins, the flat muffins, not the big tall muffins. And they'd bring them out of the oven warm, and she would put, while they were still warm, she would put salted butter on and Nutella on top. And so the whole thing, I can't explain how good that used to taste when I was younger. So I would go with my little bit of salted butter, and then I would go with Nutella. That works. I'm going to have to try some, aren't I?
George Summer said that looks amazing.
It looks amazing. I'm a little disappointed with myself for putting that little piece of extra batter on there, because the top of this would have been perfect. It's cracked. You can see the little crack on the side. Can you see that? And that's because, as I say, the oven on this oven, I actually put mine in the oven lengthways, which can quite often help. Often in ovens, it's from one side to the other side, so that's given me a fairly even cook there. I don't like that I can't see the camera, so now take a look at this one. This one, is that in shot?
Yes.
This one is still warm. I baked this morning. Literally, this came out the oven 10 minutes before the live show started. So it's as fresh. It's still hot. How gorgeous. Let me just... I've got to take a photograph of this one as well. I don't want to burn my hands. Camera down here, Michelle.
Okay.
So, look at this.
Yes, that looks better.
Can you see those two?
Yes.
Oh, God. The smell is amazing. Let's pop a little banana here. I'm going to pop these photographs. We're going to cut this open in a second because I can't cut the hot one open because it'll let all the moisture out, and I don't want to destroy it. But I do want you...
Daniel Moller said that looks good. And Giovanni Sensei says your chocolate chip recipe was brilliant, so I subscribed.
Well, welcome. I'm going to pop that down there. Are we camera down at the moment?
Camera down.
Okay. Look at this, everybody. I'm going to cut myself a slice. Camera up.
Camera up.
And we'll go back down in a minute when I cut the slice. But I'm going to have the end. Who doesn't like the end of the banana bread? I'm going to put some butter on it. Come down here. Take a look at this. So this here is barely an hour out of the oven. And we don't want to cut open our banana bread too early because the moisture coming out of it will dry the bread out. I'm going to cut this through and hopefully you're seeing it live. Wow, look at that. Can you see that? How gorgeous is, can you see the walnuts in there?
Yeah.
So it's still warm. Oh yes, still warm. Get myself just a little bit.
You've only cut one slice.
Yeah, I'm only eating one slice.
Oh, that's for me, is it? You're giving me the end.
So I've got to get a little bit of butter. Not too much. A little bit of salted butter. Oh, I got to cut a slice for Michelle.
Sean says, Girani, welcome. Steve's channel will not disappoint you in any way.
Yeah. Look at this, all the poppy seeds. Everything's just popping off the top. Even that, look at that, all the way through. Gorgeous.
George something says, OMG, that is gorgeous. Wendy says, I want banana bread now.
Oh man, I want this banana bread now.
Shona Smith says, isn't it too bad we don't have taste of vision?
It is sad, isn't it? Let's come up to the other camera. I get myself a little plate because I can. Now, this piece here, she did do a good job, didn't she, Michelle?
Oh, thank you.
You come around here, say hello to everybody. I don't know if oh, she's got to tidy herself up a little bit.
Tidy myself. This is mine.
So,
thank you.
And
Plate.
now you had the opportunity. I put the ingredients up on the site. So if you're not baking along with me and you're not enjoying this right now, it's not my fault. It's your fault. Cup of coffee, piece of trail. You could put some Nutella. Wouldn't Nutella be nice, just dripping off of this? I'm so looking forward to this.
George something says, I would love banana bread and I'm going to try this recipe. I'm so hungry all of a sudden.
Oh. And unlike the live show, I can't cut to a photograph of me chewing. That's good.
You were saying, oh, I want it now.
That is the best banana bread I've ever had. Honestly, apart from the last one I made. You must try this recipe. It's still moist. It's got a little bit of just an edge of spiciness, not too harsh. If you don't like cinnamon, don't worry, it's not strong. And oh, another one. Now let's feel if this pan has started to cool down a little bit, not too much. Am I in shot, Michelle?
You are.
Am I in shot?
You are.
So here's the one we just baked. My screen's going to sleep. Not that I can see myself. Now watch. See that? That's how easy that comes out of the pot. Super easy. It's probably a little warmer than it should be. I'm going to pop that onto my cooling rack. That's a second banana bread. Now I promised my sister, who I borrowed the loaf tins off of, so she'll be getting half of this one. Half, you notice. She might have been getting more had I not just tasted it and thought, oh, that is so good. There's quite a few people going to be enjoying this banana bread over the next day or so. So, did you enjoy today? Was it nice to do a bit of cooking? I will try and do it. Don't forget, next week is something beginning with C. I spy with my little eye something beginning with C.
We all need Star Trek replicators. We could get Steve's replicator files from his Patreon.
Oh man.
Can't talk now.
I don't want to talk anymore because I'm enjoying that. Anyway, the coconut oil, very little hint, nothing too overpowering, but it's brought the moisture into the bread. The walnuts are very present. They're lovely big chunks of walnuts, excuse me.
Sesame, I can taste the sesame seeds.
The toasted sort of nutty flavour of the sesame seeds and that slightly poppy seeds. What are they like? They're like, now I want to say something that I shouldn't really. They're not licoricey, but they're caramelised, you know, lovely, lovely flavour. That little crunch of the sugar on top.
Ebba said, I love the cooking, now I want dessert. Lol.
I feel very big-headed, but I'm going to, you know, keep saying how good it is. But it is really good. So good. So this recipe, we'll put it up on, we should probably make this as a single, I don't think I've ever done a banana bread, have I?
No, we could do this as a...
So we could possibly do this as a sort of more concise single recipe, but I'll put all the details up for you on steveskitchen.com. Can we do that?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Is that complicated?
No, we can do that. And we can make this as a recipe for all those people who missed it.
Yes. So let's just go quick through the questions, see if anyone else... I've just brought up my camera and I'm about 3 minutes behind now. Oh, it's warm. It's warm. Who was it who said, but was it David that said, put the lights on?
Yes, he's gone now, I think.
Any questions?
No, I'm just going back.
I want to thank Aussie Zach again for the super chat earlier on. That was very kind of you, Aussie Zach. I shouldn't be talking with my mouth full.
When we were talking about C, Ebba Little said about using a coconut frozen something, so coconut popsicles came up.
I know it's been on the side an hour, but I'm just tasting the batter compared to the thing. Yeah, no, all the flavours are there.
And Wendy said a coconut smoothie, so I just getting back to what we were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we might look at doing something lactose free next week. That might be kind of cool. And I'll try and get hold of the gentleman and explain to him what we're doing.
So Mrs. Angel 1379 says 2:30 a.m. here, and I want some banana bread.
2:30 a.m. Is that somewhere in Europe?
Must be.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that we're not great time to everybody in the world. It's so difficult, and I know in Europe it can be quite tricky. But it sort of suits us this time of the morning, and it's before the heat gets too hot. I have air conditioning where we are, but it's really noisy, so I don't want to put it on.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Aussie Zach. Beautiful, mate. Get Michelle and I will have a nice coffee out today, and thank you.
George something says 8:30 p.m. over here.
8:30 p.m. Must be somewhere in the US.
did say, but forgotten.
I'm gonna. Do you want to go through any more questions?
No, I think I've got most
If
of
there are
them.
any last minute questions quickly, because I'm gonna wrap up. I think we've probably done enough, and I challenge every one of you who watched this that enjoyed it and thought that looked nice. Make this. You're gonna love it. Make it for you. Make it for so exactly from Germany.
That's for
Miss Angel, Mrs.
Mrs.
Angel. Share it with some friends. They're gonna love you for making this. They're gonna say, where did you learn to make such a good banana bread? Make sure your bananas are nice and ripe. And you're gonna say to them, that's Steve Owens on Steve's Kitchen. He's a bit of a whiz with banana bread.
Yeah, toasted walnuts, which we did do beforehand.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't show you here, which I did probably before, was just to rather than take the walnuts straight from a packet, you just toast them off a little bit, either in the oven or just in a skillet or frying pan, just to get extra sort of nutty flavour to them, and it really does work. Excuse me.
Sean says thanks for everything, Steve and Michelle.
Thank you, Sean.
Draws something, says I will make it for my family.
And if you do make it, I reckon if you follow this recipe, and don't worry about coconut oil. If you don't want to use coconut oil, which can be a bit expensive, use any other fat. You can use any vegetable oil you like, or use butter to the same quantity. When you do make it, send me a picture. I'd love to see how it comes out for you.
So Amy says, thank you, you guys are wonderful, God bless. I think it was Amy who said she was lactose intolerant, so that might be good for next week.
And Michelle's speaking with her mouth full.
Sorry.
I'm terrible. See, I'm telling tales on her because she
Picks on you.
had a go at me for not cutting her a slice of banana bread. We're going to make ourselves probably another hot drink, and we're going to sit outside in the garden, have ourselves a slightly thicker slice of banana bread. We're going to relax. My mother will be around here a little bit later on today, so she's looking forward to a bit of banana bread. A few other members of the family. It's Australia Day. Happy Australia Day
Tomorrow.
to all the Aussies who watch this. If you watch this tomorrow, have a fantastic Australia Day. Get down the beach, do something good. I think
But it's a Friday, so they get a nice long weekend.
yeah, so there's a long weekend for everybody. They're going to have a good time. Love to you all wherever you are in the world. Be good. Share the love. Hit that share button. Share the video with your friends. And we are going to wrap this up. And Michelle doesn't know how to stop it, so I'm going to have to go down round the other side and help her. Be good. Take care. See you. Oh, we've got, if she hasn't stopped it already, we have got a fun recipe tomorrow, Friday. Well, it's technically Saturday for a lot of people, Saturday morning. So look out for that. It's a lot of fun. I want to hear your comments. See you next time.
Does it stop streaming?